capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I
It's
know.
really hard.
And maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. I am your host, Zach, and joining me once again, after a long hiatus, there's been a lot of stuff going on in both our lives.
1 month. Ooh.
Yeah.
Forever time in the online,
for
right?
us, it's a long time to go without. But anyway, Dan Platt of the Three Left Show and What's Left in Albany is on, and we're going to discuss
slightly
and react to some
faded.
Videos. Yeah, with his new studio.
The old office.
Yeah.
In my parents' old home. No longer, the parents are not here. It's a kid's dream come
That's
true.
right.
It's Home Alone, but
there you go.
I'm 35.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, if you wanted to rig up some paint cans in the stairway, no one is there to stop you. So
yeah, I'm now the homeowner, and I must protect it with the castle doctrine.
That's right.
And it applies. And this is a rough neighborhood,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting situation. And the plan's to be here for about a year while I make certain repairs. Unfortunately, there's still a leak in the roof. And some of the repairs are fixing the ceilings from previous leaks. So it's like, well, I'm not going to repaint these until I know this leak's gone. But we've already had roofers go over this roof multiple times in the last decade. So it's just maddening that there's still a drip coming through.
Yeah,
it's. I guess there is a bucket of tar. I could do it. Like I could try doing it myself. Just go over. I know what the problem area kind of is.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to know. Is it coming in through the skylight? It's not the skylight usually, but definitely not the skylight. There's always this place above the bathroom. It's
interesting.
Been there since I was 12. And it's just this. It feels like we tried everything. Very expensive, roof fixing. It's a row house, almost flat roof, like this.
Oh, okay.
So it's not. Home builders, pitched roofs are a good thing. They are
absolutely
that way for a freaking reason. Yeah. Flat or near flat roofs. Even if it's a row house, it should have a pitched roof.
A pitch to it, yeah. At least where it snows.
Which do exist. Yeah, and it snows here. Oh, it snows.
Yeah.
So, but I can only tell if it's leaking or not if it's raining. So it's got to be hard, like kind of testing, especially as winter's coming and it's not going to be. Well, I guess in the warm periods it'll rain. But we haven't been getting a lot of precipitation in the Northeast of the last few years.
Yeah.
Maybe I think we're due for a rough one after the last two. So, do you want to start with an overview of Israel Palestine and?
Yeah, let's start with the heavier subjects.
I wanted to give, and I'm going to make TikToks, but now that it's daylight savings, I guess I have to do them before work. Because now it's going to be dark once I leave work. Because I like doing them outside, in non-areas where you can't identify too much about my life. But I want to tell my deconversion story from Zionism, as I was raised Jewish, and in that environment, Palestine doesn't exist already. It's not mentioned. It's not part of any conversation or curriculum. I mean, I'm talking about pre-13, but still, when you explain war and conflict to children, I suppose you just kind of make it very black and white. Arabs versus Jews. and it is described that way. And I'll be specific that this is a conservative, not that kind, but the Jewish kind of conservative
Jewish
temple,
sect,
which is actually kind of liberal or progressive, but it is kind of odd terminology. But but it's in the actual liberal temples where you actually find the Jewish Voices for Peace chapters, but conservative enough that it will be a Zionist, and Palestinians are not mentioned at all. They're not just part of any conversation or anything like that. It's just Arabs, it's not like even to adults now. If it's status quo narrative, it's not really explaining things well, or it's just lying about what really like that video that got the rounds because it was definitely promoted. It was definitely idea propaganda, but it was like this guy going like, I'm not pro the government, but let me explain, give all the usual Zionist talking points over 40 minutes. It was I'm glad I didn't watch it, but it was, I watched his conclusion, and his conclusion was just like, Muslims are bad. That's what came out.
Wow.
Or something like that, or like usual lies about like, well, we bought the land legally, and but that doesn't make it right. It's like you bought the land and you kicked the tenant farmers off of it. Like, what's ethical about that?
Right.
I guess you're speaking as a capitalist, which most people are not expecting that. But anyway, so part one. I think I was in middle school. This memory was triggered. It's obviously something I forgot, but it was triggered by the fact that President Sunday himself was reading Theodore Herzl's Case for a Jewish State, and really useful to do that. It's he didn't read the whole thing, but like a third of it. He wanted the why, and he wanted to go over the state stuff because he's a political scientist guy, nerd, and. Right. But it triggered the thought in me that, oh, yeah, I did read this at one point. I just can't remember whether I was a teen. Well, I wasn't really, probably not when I was a teen. Maybe when I was in middle school, because that was the last year I was in Hebrew school. And I think I read it then because we kind of had a little bit of independent study. We were actually discussing things in the actual Jewish way, which is the question to actually go through options and possibilities and go, on the other hand, you're never dogmatic about anything, which is why whenever any Israeli or Zionist talks and things in black and white terms, I'm like, what kind of Jew do you think you are?
Yeah.
But that also goes, I guess, for any kind of conservative, ultra-Orthodox Jew as well. The fetishization of the word. Even though, like, what makes us Jewish in the last 2,000 years is that as long as we had the word, it was enough. We could be anywhere. We were still Jewish. That's what made us special, as far as, like, we're not just an ethnicity tied to a land, and our land is the temple, is like the fact that the God is in the temple and the temple is there. That doesn't matter anymore. We have the word. That was a new thing at the time. In the time of the Roman Empire, where the God lives in the temple. So it didn't matter that our temple was gone. We don't need to rebuild it. At least that's the way I kind of thought about it, especially the kind of books that I have on my shelf. But I read, like, as President Sunday was reading The Case for a Jewish State, he was catching on something I caught on as a middle schooler, but obviously couldn't articulate because I had no political philosophy background or thinking at all. But why was I even reading it in the first place? Well, I wanted to be able to defend Israel. I wanted to be able to know why it was important that we had a Jewish state. I wanted to know the thinking behind it. Real nerd stuff, I guess. But as a middle schooler, it didn't sit right with me because it is laced with romantic nationalism and the reasoning that President Sunday really is able to articulate, since he has the whole bookshelf of Locke, Rousseau, and Leviathan, and about the state and how the state it's a fascist idea that the state subsumes the individual, that Jews need a state because Jews are not capable to organize and protect themselves. We need a state to be able to do that. The state is the ultimate way of organizing politically, or it's the only way. So it's a very Eurocentric. States are the be-all, end-all. So, of course, if we are to be a political entity, we have to be a state, which, of course, is taking the oppressors. It's the way they do things. We have to copy them. Which put them at odds at the time in the 1890s with all of those liberal Jews who believed, rightly, even today, that no, we fight for our human rights here, now, wherever we are, with political organizing, with fellow travelers, and but I guess in those circles sometimes there would be anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. In the same way, like Marx and Engels, it's in passing, but it's just like a bias against the religious, or it's a bias against, like, there's still an outsider status, even within socialist circles. It feels like, we're being judged for being Jewish.
Sure.
Even though the international project, rightfully, you just remind people of that, and like, that's against the party line, comrade. Being anti-Semitic, stop it. At least it's depicted in certain movies. What was it? The Revenant? It's the one with Daniel Craig. Anyway, so as a middle schooler, I'm like, this isn't so right. There's nationalism here. There's this argument that the state will do what's best for Jews around the world, whether they like it or not, because that's what states do. They do what they are incapable of doing, which is to politically organize, I guess. So that's part one. So it made me skeptical of Zionism from that point forward. Part two, and this is just based on my own memory, but let's just say the milieu of my high school years was just being skeptical of the Iraq War, Islamophobia. I'm thinking in terms of Israel and Palestine as, like, I'm not thinking too hard about it, I suppose, but I'm not caring enough to care about it. But a piece of news, I don't know, I'd have to look up the year, but let's say it was 2006 or something, when there was a peace deal. It was the last peace deal made, or the last deal where the Palestinians got something, which was the eviction of Jewish settlers in Gaza. Like, there were settlers, Jewish settlers in Gaza, and they were removed. And I remember maybe it was the nightly news. And I think as a Jew, I was supposed to see this as a terrible tragedy. They're just showing images of, like, I remember it's like this acidic looking guy, and his house is being demolished, and behind him, and he's just rabid, foaming at the mouth, rabid about, this crime being committed against him and his family and Jews everywhere, or something like that. And my thought was, but what was he doing there? The deal is that they were settling there without permission. They were doing it like, isn't that supposed to be Palestinian land? Isn't it like two-state solution? What were they doing there? How were they allowed there in the first place? Or, fine, they weren't allowed. Good. Isn't this the just thing? Surely they have somewhere else to go. It looks like a pretty nice house he built there. Sure, he could build another one. It's not like he's losing everything. Surely, it's just, I wasn't feeling too bad for this guy. Mostly also because of the optics. He was just so fucking pissed, so filled with hate for Arabs, and it broke the illusion that, like, Israeli and Jews are, like, minding their own business or doing the best they can with the land that was promised to us, and we're just always going to be attacked. And I see, like, Jews being just as, like, well, it seems to be hateful Arabs versus peaceful Jews, and I'm seeing the opposite on TV in this case. So kind of broke the spell a little bit there. I have a memory of it. Next memory, I'm fully in college, not going to shul anymore, not doing the prayer for peace, which is a prayer for Israel, or their one is after the other. And let's see, I'm watching a program. I'll have to see if it's still findable, but it's called Mosaic. And it's a program where It's an Arab created show where it's news broadcasts from 5 to 6 different sources, sometimes on the same story. So you get to see Iranian state TV, Al Jazeera, the Qatari network, the Israeli network, and then like BBC sometimes if it's covering the Middle East story. So you see the same event from different perspectives. And for doing that, you can tease out what the actual facts, the things that are agreed on, and then what are the different lines from each government slash society. Really, really cool stuff. It's kind of like what Ground and other types of services try to do to help people not be media literate, I guess. And it definitely helped my media literacy, though I kind of was primed by my education in a magnet school, because media literacy was actually like there in the curriculum. But there was a story one episode. I don't remember too many of the topics covered, but it ran for like a year. But there was a news story. It was about a family in Gaza, and they were homeless. They were living in a graveyard. It kind of looked like a crater, though I think maybe it was like a ditch they dug.
Oh,
but it looks like they're living in graves.
Oh, wow.
And the visual and the reality of that, and this is when like maybe a year or so later, you have Cass Led and even Jon Stewart's like, when you look at the conditions in Gaza, you're kind of like, they're not like living it up. Like this seems disproportionate, like I'm still rooting for you, Israel, but like it's I'm not hating these Gazans. It's like these Gazans are not equals to you economically or in power or anything like that. Because the rhetoric is always like, it's tit for tat. It's like an equal struggle. It's a struggle. It's a conflict.
Right.
Conflict, war, as it currently is. Constantly called war. But it's like, anyway, I don't want to. So, but just a visual. They're already living in the grave, this family. And they have nothing. They have nowhere else to go. And this was like 2010 or something like that. I don't know the year. So that's when I kind of decide like to, be supportive of Palestinian rights and stop taking and I wasn't going to take Israel's side every time anyway, but at least I kind of wanted to admit to be fair. And I'm noticing just how unfair the conditions are if you're Palestinian. And it just with the internet as our generation, it gets a boon from. We can see both sides. We can see real conditions, and we are not slaves or captive to whatever is on cable TV or the nightly news or how they present things. Because even now, in the last month, as they presented things as a war, something to both sides. There were concerns about these protests and being anti-Semitic, which is it's quite insane. When I actually spent time at work reading the ADL, Anti-Defamation League's report on anti-Semitism in campus. This is after the BDS movement was growing, and they're showing the bar graph of how many incidents of anti-Semitism. Of course, they're counting any panel, protest, leaflet, outreach of basically pro-Palestinian rights organizing on campus, which there are 3 groups mostly. But mostly 2, Jewish Voices for Peace and Students for Palestinian Rights or something.
Right. And
anything they did was counted as an anti-Semitic or in a, not an instance, what do you call it? Like in a something you count.
Yeah. An incident, sure.
An incident, yeah, incident. And they admitted, of course, that there was only one instance of assault on a Jew, and this was like a Hillel member, which I can even imagine like some argument broke out and someone got punched, and this counts as an anti-Semitic assault. But when it's during a human war crimes, and you have Zionists on campus being the arrogant pricks they are, they get some harassment thrown their way, and this is counted as being a hostile environment to Jews.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, I've definitely seen some people just taking the opportunity to be truly anti-Semitic and, cloak that in support for Palestine.
Yeah.
But I would
Well,
not
if
say
your
that's...
family's been killed in a war crime, you're going to be pretty hateful. And this is Norman Finkelstein. There was just a clip interview with him or discussion, and he talked about his parents and how like they hated Germans until the day they died.
Yeah.
And Poles, and
he's a great speaker.
and he finds, as well as I see it in my daily life or on media, the Palestinians are actually pretty reserved for everything that's been done to them.
Sure.
And it reminds me of the Jewish experience that we, over our history in the last 1,000 years, have always kind of taken it on the chin, because we were never in a position to fight back effectively or resist effectively. So we just kind of had to take it. And I suppose it's odd that as soon as we are able to take it and give it back or fight back or resist, we go right to fascism as far as like, but that's just the statism and the nationalism.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
there was probably there are lots of liberal Zionists, but they've all been put to the side by now. I mean, their leaders were assassinated. Their organizing has been sabotaged. Stuff like that. I mean, I guess they're still there, so to speak, but the liberal Zionists are still just apologists for the war crimes as much as anyone else. Just as Democrats are, the apologists for everything Republicans
capitalism
do.
Indeed.
The good, it's not good news really, but the some silver lining, I guess, is the Arab immigrant and other populations are just done with the Dems. They're not going to vote for Biden. A friend of mine is completely done because he also sees all the local Dems as a bunch of phonies and bullshitters. And he doesn't like, he was explaining like who he knows to be running for mayor. We'll have a 3-way primary, and it'll be these 3 people. They're all fuckwads to some degree who don't give a but they waited their turn. The Democratic machine, or any machine, political machine, it's like the minor leagues. You just wait your turn and you'll get up the bat. And then you get to be self-important while you basically just do whatever developers in real estate want.
Well, hey, there's a big opportunity for the Greens to get in there, because at least they have the right message and the right platform.
Yeah, I hope I'm not being. It's going to be unnamed, but we were out at a party, and so we were both drinking some alcohol. And our discussion was wrapping up because a mutual friend, who was their partner's birthday, asked me, just the casual, like, what's going on? Because I told him about the radio, and I told him about moving. So he asked the other thing he knows, which is like, well, how's the Green Party stuff happening? Anything happening on that front? And so, I gave the short version of Cornel West and my analysis of it. And so my other friend, my Egyptian friend, kind of comes up and starts kind of giving the usual. Well, I'm really condensing it, but he did the thing where or like someone who wants to be third party, but like doesn't really know what they want in an alternative politics. So they kind of just say, it's just your name, what he really meant was, and he was clear about this, it's the perception. We do have a perception problem.
I mean,
But
that's
how
gonna
you
be
turn
any
that
third.
around without more support,
Right.
without people being involved.
Yeah.
It's not quite a paradox, but what I did was, it's like, look, man, if you want to give the name for the organization, I didn't just limit it to parties, the org that you would join and be a part of, give me a name that you would like be cool with, and if you give me a name, we'll continue this conversation. If you can't give me a name, which he didn't, I basically gave him the hand wave. And our mutual friend laughed at that. He's like, he's giving you the wave. He doesn't give a shit because he didn't have a name. And then he admitted that he will join. He will register his green on the
Hey, hell yeah.
And so we'll see how that goes and what comes of it.
Sure.
But it's definitely a sign that he's not the only. I mean, if the poll numbers have been covered online, about 15% of Arab Americans will approve of Biden, and it dropped from 60%. I mean, it kind of matters when there's war crimes happening, and
and he's
it's
like,
just like, we need a humanitarian pause. Because that's what people object to, the fact that there aren't enough supplies or any supplies getting in. It's not just the bombing, the war crimes, the conditions that have persisted for 20, 30 years. Well, 75 usually. But let's just start from during the war on terror phase of this.
Yeah.
Our lifetimes. So it's certainly a sea change because it's not just them. There's a lot of other liberals that are thinking twice, or they're getting defensive. But that's usually the sign that they're ready to think about it in some way. But they just need a little bit more ignorance breaking, like I had. And the same thing goes for like alternative organizing and perception problems. Breaking the perception. You need to do things that break the perception. When I only considered joining the Greens when I met because I was thinking of myself as a socialist, and I wasn't thinking of the Greens as a socialist party or friendly for socialists. But then I was the person who was doing the outreach for the Greens in my area was a socialist, and that changed the perception. I had a very low bar. I think I just needed to know that there were socialists there. Because otherwise, when I looked at Stilstein's rhetoric or other high-profile Greens like Nader, they come off as reformists, and Nader certainly still is actually, but he's an old man, so take that with a grain of salt. And so Stein to some extent, but I mean she's further left than Nader actually. She just won't use the S word, but I think the as far as the platform goes, it's all there.
Yeah.
So
Howie was not afraid of that word, and that's what really made me admire him.
Yeah, but it also made a lot of progressives not talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, that was also the climate too. People were so afraid of the rise of fascism.
We covered that before. The rise of fascism, which of course is just around the corner now, because hell, this election will be the most important election of our lifetimes.
Wow, I've never heard that phrase before. That's amazing. This must be a really special times that we're living in right
Biden
now.
versus Trump, round 2, and that's how you get streamers like Vosh talking up the Democrats. No matter what the fuck they're doing, they have to talk up how great they are and how much important it is that we not have more Republican rule. But of course, that's not what the argument is. The argument is for organizing a left. But that's where you get the conclusion where, well, we can't organize a left yet. We need to organize workers first. So you get worker organizing. But I've talked about how skeptical I am of that strategy. Because we did all of that already. And it did get us something of a left back in the early 20th century. But it didn't. That left didn't go very far.
Yeah, eventually it was clawed back too, and
yes,
it was a long time where labor had virtually zero power. So
because again, you were using the tools of the masters, or you were working on their terms.
Well, yeah, and like you didn't have necessarily the ideas to go along with the movement, so as soon as people were comfortable, they became complacent, and
Yes.
like generations after didn't get the same opportunities.
Yes, the unions were giving you holidays and extra perks and
Yeah.
health insurance. So why fight for other people's ability
Right.
to have
Yeah.
health
Who cares? I got
insurance?
mine. Yeah.
Or the people who don't have it are the blacks and Jews and Irish,
Oh,
and
yeah.
or
That's true as
Italians.
well.
So,
Yeah.
well, the Italians had, again, these ethnic groups started having unions, or they did, and that was enough. But anyway, so let's okay. So we have that globalist.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a lighter note. There's been a meme that's been going around for quite some time, and it shows a fruit cup that says "grown in Argentina, packed in Thailand," and of course, it is an American store that it was picked up in. And then there's a little map that shows the many
It's going
thousand
across
mile
Pacific
journey.
twice.
Yes. And
Going across Pacific twice.
the implication is, oh, this is insane. Why are we doing things this way? And here we have this guy, Brit Monkey, who I know.
At the very least, it could be grown in Argentina, packaged in Mexico, and then sold in the U.S. So at least
Right.
it's just a nice north-south axis.
Skip over the border, right? But yeah. So this supposedly debunks that sort of outrage at all of that energy going into just getting you pears in any time of the year. So,
Do you know what? Do you know anything about who's making this?
So this is Brit Monkey. It's not someone I'm familiar with. I just happened across this.
Brit Bomber.
Brit Monkey.
Okay.
I don't know anything about them.
No, sorry. What's a Brit Bomber?
Brit Bonger, I think is the
or Bonger.
term.
That's slang for something, right?
It is. I think it's just a British person.
Okay.
Maybe one who is all about Britain, or fits some sort of stereotype. I'm not really.
Or a hippie.
It could be a hippie, sure. Yeah, Brit Bonger.
I guess we go to College Dictionary and
yeah.
or Urban Dictionary. I mean.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, let's see that.
So anyway, yeah, let's dig into the debunking of this.
Hello, everybody. Do you like fruit? Do you like consuming fruit in winter? Do you too live on a
I like stuff.
Yeah, I like to have my pears in the middle of winter. I don't, in the rancid sugary syrup that they serve it in. You gotta have that. Will not even entertain a world that does not include that.
pathetic, godless, rainy island that cannot grow anything exotic whatsoever?
Because apparently
You can in greenhouses.
That's what I was just about to say. Like, apparently they've not mastered the greenhouse technology yet. So here's hoping for them.
Not on the scale of the dwindling population. I mean, that's sort of the. Sorry, at work I've been dragged into the whirlpool of videos about the disaster crisis of declining populations in developed nations.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, well,
it's funny how quickly that just evolves into Malthusian.
Why is there an assumption that population decline will continue until it's zero?
Because people are not capable of thinking that things will ever be different. It's just,
when
I
things
see line go down, line must go down.
They're going down to zero. It can never trough up. Just as when line goes up, it can never plateau.
We'll never flatten out.
Yeah. Now I don't know where Japan's population will trough, since it went from like 130 to 89 million.
Yes.
So over the last decades, so like, yeah, it's going down pretty sharply, being like, they're at one birth per person, or per average birth. And but by the way, the government, one of the videos was about how the government was actually going to pay for public daycares and actually increase the child stipends to what it would actually cost to raise a kid. Because it seems everything the Abe government was doing was like probably means tested. We're going to pay you the equivalent of like $200 a month. And that was supposed to be the incentives to increase the birth rate.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, of course that didn't fucking work, you fucking jackasses. Who the hell was making this? Was like, why was there no criticism of this when people would talk about it? These normies.
I don't know. But also the easiest solution to any declining population is just loosen your immigration restrictions, which Japan refuses to do.
They're starting to, though, actually.
That's good because, there's plenty of people that would love to come and live in these countries.
Aside of these videos because it's at work, so it's not my usual settings / watch history.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tabula rasa. But the other type of video that's going along with it is local or like talking to immigrants or non-native born people in Japan. There's quite a lot of, when people are biracial, they're like usually half German. Somebody was half American, and but they always lived in Chiba, so like, they're just native Japanese speaker.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I spent a year in Seattle. I kind of wish I could have been there longer, but I guess there wasn't enough money. Fun little conversations and whatnot.
Right.
But definitely the people under 40 are okay with immigrants. It's the people who are older who aren't.
Yeah, the people that want to put every culture under glass and say no outside influences ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think post 80s, everyone born after that is a bit more of a global citizen, including the Japanese.
Well,
so
we've grown up in the internet age.
like when asked, like, and it was a man on the street interview, so it was just like a few people, but it was like a guy who was like our age, and he was like, oh yeah, I worked in Thailand for a few years, so why shouldn't someone who's Thai work here? I'm cool with it. It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
There's nothing. We're not going to. And he's not explaining it in depth, but it's like, you think we're going to lose our Japaneseness?
No.
Or something like that? No.
Of course, the
What makes us
dominant culture is
Japanese,
always
exactly?
going to be the thing that everyone
Sushi
blends
is
into.
Sushi, anime, and manga are all over the world. If anything, more of the world is becoming more Japanese.
Yeah, there you go.
Besides the culture of indirectness. So that's what the half German would like. There was two of them actually, but the one of them was like, oh yeah, Germans are very direct, and my Japanese mother taught me how to be indirect.
Interesting. Continuing on.
If so, we need to talk about this photograph, because it's
There
a
it
day
is.
ending in Y, so somebody has to get angry on the internet again about one of 5 pictures. The implication of
Notice what those 5 pictures are as well. Let's
take a look.
So we have. Why don't we have high-speed rail? That's a great
The
question.
kind of system we could have.
What kind of system we could have? Yeah, why is that something that's not a word?
It is the one Amtrak is planning for. It's just like in the timeline of 15 years when it should be 3.
So yeah.
You've got the anti-homeless spikes under an overpass.
Fuck that shit. Like, there's no reason to kick people that are at the bottom of society.
It's not even a comfortable place, but you can pitch a 10.
Right. Like,
And it's
they just need to be out of the rain.
and it's in a 4 lane, so you got all those cars. It wouldn't be comfortable.
No, it wouldn't be at all.
If you know the background, so the sprawl place on the left, that's just it's a town that's just where 2 highways cross, but they're not. It's not an interchange, so you actually have to get off one highway to go on the other.
Oh, okay.
And that's why there's this really condensed road. It's the densest road ever.
Yeah.
So that's why it's literally just like that half mile. But that's what makes it unique.
Sure. And you see these sorts of things on the edges of a lot of American towns, and they're not great. It's not a great way to build cities, and it doesn't have a long-term future. So sure, I guess I'm not furious about that, but anyway. And then these are
representations of wider issues.
I guess so. And then we have a white king being carried by Africans. That's pretty bad.
I don't know the context of it. Do you know the context of that?
I don't, but he's he's a prince, I guess. Not
he's
king yet,
he's paying for the deluxe package.
Yeah.
Or is he actually a nobleman?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what country this is. I'm assuming there are probably some history of colonization from Britain on this country, or in the country that they're depicting. But yeah, that's not a good
But
look.
why would
So
you do this today?
justifiable, right?
Why would you do this today?
Yeah, it's like people that still do blackface for Halloween. It's like, this is totally avoidable. You didn't have to do this. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
The implication of this image is that dumb idiot Argentinian pear plantation owners spend hard-earned, valuable Argentinian money to ship freshly picked pears all the way to Thailand to be...
No, that's not the implication. No one thinks that they are shipping them. Pear
It's
growers,
one business owner to another.
Exactly. Pear growers, they grow the
Market,
food.
it's like bartering. It's just you have individuals working in the marketplace, of course.
But no, they grow it and they give it to distribution centers that then
Sounds like a lot of
transport.
straw manning is going to be happening here.
Yeah.
packaged into these gross single-use plastic containers before
Which are
again
not great
being shipped
themselves.
to, presumably, the United States. A near-complete navigation of the entire planet on massive container ships burning fuel and money. For some fruit? What's that all about? Long story short, it's this thing called comparative advantage, but the Wikipedia page for that is really dense and covered in equations and has only 4 pictures and 3 of them are graphs, so I'm not going to read any of that. Let's take a look at the supply chain of pears and figure out at what point exactly it becomes cheaper to do all of this than supposedly the easy way of just growing the pears in the USA and packing them somewhere in the USA. Like Iowa. And I promise you, I'll try and make it funny. I know it sounds really boring, I should know. I just spent several days reading about the f***ing pear industry. No, wait, don't click off, please, no. Part 1. Growing a pear. Okay, some of the clever clogs among us may have already figured out that in most places across the world, you can grow your own pears in your backyard. Even in Sweden, where the average temperature is
I have this music track.
Do you?
Yeah, from like a album of what is it, Dinner Jazz. Anyway.
minus a billion. But anyone with a fruit tree in their garden, or anyone who learned about seasons in preschool, will know that the tree doesn't always make fruit all of the time.
But they're showing canned pears. They're showing canned pears, which is something that you can do in any climate. And then
So according
store
to
them.
his straw man of those who are upset by global logistics as they are,
Uh-huh.
and the rules of comparative advantage leading to the overly built infrastructure of our food industries. He's just starting with, he has to explain that, most of our crops are, yes, better grown in the tropics. And where growing seasons are longer / all the time.
Well, it's opposite of what we have, so
Yeah.
you can get your winter pears because everyone has to have winter pears.
I think the objection is the distance of cheap labor in Thailand, cheap growing land in Argentina, and the way the monopolies work there.
And cheap transport fuel.
And cheap
to
transport
bridge all the
fuel.
gaps, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still fossil fuels.
Right.
So he's not really. He's got to talk to the straw man, and I guess the audience for this are the people who want to feel smug about those wokeoids. They don't know anything about anything, and because they have this picture in their head, and I think I easily had that about right wingers when I was younger, and the world doesn't make sense if you think of everybody else as an NPC idiot.
Right.
Maybe online you get that impression from people who are trolling or messing around or whatever. Just people can be pretty immature in real life or in person, but and ignorant. Maybe I'm not making a good case for this.
But they're not. They're not just completely duh. Like
yeah. It's like
that's how things are. Like
they can. That's not what people are complaining about anyway. So it's just like, let's just go through. I just feel
usually for a few weeks in summer it makes a lot, and then it dies off again. Pro. Some weeks a year you get free fruit. Yay! Con, you have to eat like 100 pears in the span of a week, or they'll all go rotten and make your house smell worse than a university.
Again, canning. Like these dumbass cups, they put them out on shelves unrefrigerated, and they last for years. Like obviously you're not going to have that high tech of an operation and like a clean room in your basement or something, but you can do the boiled can method and have all those peaches or plums or what pears, whatever you have.
I
and
think
just ham 'em right up.
there's also a bit of capitalist realism happening here, as you'll always find in these apologist videos.
Yeah.
That exchange can only happen in a market economy, and a market economy is going to be for profit. So
Yeah.
Profit can only be gained through industrial scaled and all that jazz. The whole example of, say, a home craft industry or neighborhood fruit trees, they could provide enough fruit for a whole neighborhood or a local locality.
Right.
You just need a means of distribution
Mm-hmm.
to gather your 100 pears, and everyone on your block could be given 3 of them.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that isn't enough pears for everybody's consumptive needs.
No.
But if everyone has a different fruit tree, then yeah, there is enough fruit, more or less.
Sure.
But I think about how, like, my manager at work, she has a hobby of making soap. She's made a lot of frickin' soap.
Mm-hmm.
She has hundreds of bars. She brought in about like 50 of them just to get rid of them. She put them out. Everybody in my office I took 3.
Yeah.
She has sensitive skin. That's why she makes her own, to make sure it's just right. They're not very aromatic. Aromatic.
Yeah.
And so they're very mild. They're mild. You don't really smell too much on them. But hey, it's just lye, oils, and whatever.
Yeah.
A little coloring. So she used spinach for coloring in one of the bars.
Interesting. How about that?
Just to give it a little greenness.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, and then anyone who comes to visit the office looking for her, I get to say, oh, feel free, you missed her, but feel free to take a complimentary soap.
Yeah.
So and that's just her in her spare time, because it isn't that hard to make soap.
Right.
But I think about the home crafts industry, like I never have to buy a bar of soap from a grocery store. If just one person in my neighborhood making hundreds of bars of soap,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need that much soap.
Right, yeah.
I go through, 6 bars a year,
Yeah. Sure.
8 backs. And if it was someone's full-time job, but they would never. That's the problem is that's use value versus exchange value. One person can never grow enough pears or make enough soap or do some home crafts.
Yeah.
To,
on their own completely.
to make enough exchange value to pay rent.
Right.
But obviously, if rent was, that's why we fight to decommodify first, and then we can worry about having that equitable, non-exchange value-based economy.
Yeah.
Go back, but with modern technology, you can have the best of industrial production, with crock pots and potting and pots and stuff. But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You could have a few people make enough home goods.
We could do okay with not that much more effort
for a whole neighborhood or city.
And if people didn't have to worry about having to have housing or food or other necessities, if that was provided, there'd be plenty of people who could provide the labor to, say, harvest all the fruit in a neighborhood once it ripened. And
but the reason to get ahead of whatever this guy talks about, the reason the pear canning facility is in Thailand is because it's not profitable to have it in America. Or even Mexico.
Absolutely. And I believe that is the argument he's going to end up making. But
because the outrage is not that pears or fruit or beef is raised in Argentina or other economies that are going to have more agriculture.
Right.
You know what I mean. We could easily grow a lot of pears in the South, though. I mean, it's not like
absolutely. And then, like you say, with greenhouses with minimal technology, we could even bump that up even more, and we could conceivably provide all the various foods.
But just like you look at the domestic Apple industry,
Uh-huh.
I think the U.S. grows all of its own apples. Maybe there's certain types that can't be grown in America, but I mean, between New York and Washington, we grow a lot of freaking apples, and it seems economical.
Absolutely.
And the businesses around the apple farms, making apple cider donuts and the cider. They're not just during the fall, they sell all year round.
Yeah, they figure out. All right, anyway, continuing on.
University dormitory kitchen. Take the fucking bins out, Jessica. For the other 351 days per year, if you want a nice pear and sausage smoothie, you need to buy your pears from elsewhere. Perhaps a hot country where seasons barely exist and fruit grows on trees all year round, like Argentina, for example. But the United States of America also grows pears, more than Argentina in fact. Why must the pears in this picture come from Argentina and not be homegrown, red-blooded, freedom-loving American pears? God damn it. Because while the United States produces pears, it also produces a lot of other things. Argentina is still primarily an agricultural economy, and so naturally their government policy is geared towards specializing in farming and food transportation, making their pear quality better and producing more of them faster, even if they don't produce as much as Americans. In the real world, it's kind of like getting your hair cut by your mum or by a professional barber.
Even if what he says is true, which I find doubtful.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, right. But even if what he says is true, then we could shift government policy, right? If this is something we wanted to do for whatever reason, to save resources, to, connect with local farmers, whatever the reason, then we could just shift the government policy and put more money into developing local foods, right?
I mentioned the realism that, like, the only reason you'd want your pear production to be domestic is for nationalistic reasons.
Yeah, that's
not
stupid.
Environmental.
Right.
Or even economic reasons.
I always read this as first and foremost an environmental meme, because of the fuel used, but then also because of the single-use plastic that then.
Why is this guy? He hasn't. I mean, it's not part of the video. It's not part of the entertainment value. Why does he think people are mad about the pears? The distance. Sure. I think he hinted at the distance.
I'm not sure. Like every time I see this meme come up, it's like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Or we got to do local food, or, that sort of thing. I'm not.
Or even regionalism. Also, I'm for that.
Sure. Yeah. Regional food. Yeah, whatever. But like, it's never just these frothing at the mouth. Oh my God, this makes me so angry sort of thing. So.
No, it's just a recognition of the inefficiencies of just working off of exchange value.
Yeah.
Your mum does loads of stuff, of which cutting your hair is a part. The barber does nothing but hair cutting. Ain't it just easier to get your hair cut?
This is the dumbest analogy.
And where's this data? And where's this data where Argentinian pears are better than American pears?
Yeah,
I guess they're better for being canned in Thailand.
Yeah, they're not better.
They're tougher.
It's ridiculous. It's the same thing. Like, I'm sure I've seen California grown pears in the supermarket, and it's no different than any pears you get any other time of the year. But this is so dumb, as though pear farmers in America are also producing all that other load of crap that he was talking about, burgers and corn and petroleum and all this other crap. No,
pears aren't
pears.
And pears aren't really, they're not a tropical fruit, right?
No. I mean, you can grow pears in Minnesota.
You just have a growing season, right? Not just
right.
But yeah. I mean, we grow so many apples in New York. And it's not like we don't have 3 growing seasons. Yes,
no,
but that's the point, that it takes the whole year for the apple to mature. Or the corn. The corn's, but we should be growing corn in New York. But unfortunately, the Fed, that's the Fed policy we need to rail against, is the subsidized corn production.
Absolutely.
And not broccoli production or something like that.
That's the subsidized refined grain policies.
Hmm.
But by a guy who does it every day instead of someone who only does it once every couple months. Is it worth the time and money for your mum to improve her skills in hairdressing when you're the only person who needs her services and only once every couple of months? No. Same principle with the fruit. The USA does not, or should not, give any more time and money towards fostering the pear industry, because it has more important things to.
He seems to be arguing that Argentina needs to be poor, to have better pears.
Well, okay.
They can't develop their economy anymore because Argentina is always a floundering economy, right? Because it is primarily agricultural in the hands of 10 billionaires or something.
Hold on. He had a comment here. So the region they're grown is the Patagonian region. So he even comments on this video later on that they're grown in Patagonia, which is not a warm tropical climate. So he's just assuming, he's starting off assuming that Argentina
with the growing seasons that's about the growing seasons.
Tropical wonderland.
No,
and it's not.
It's about the export prices or something.
Yeah, but Argentina. I'm looking at pictures of glaciers here.
Or the agricultural workers are just paid less, and it's just about labor costs.
Right. Yes, they're either subsidized by the government, which is definitely a possibility, which makes it cheaper.
They're all about the beef exporting.
Yeah, or to supply enough pears worldwide, they saw an opportunity that couldn't be supplied by northern countries during their winter season. So there's that too. But the idea that they're just growing pears year round is almost certainly not true because
they have our climate.
Right. And I believe the pear, like most fruits of the prunus variety, has to have a period of at least 6 weeks of hardening off where you have below freezing temperatures, or it never signals it to bud again. So I don't think they're getting more than one growing season either. I would be very surprised if that were the case.
That's why Washington, New York has big apple industries.
Yeah. Anyway, this guy's an idiot. So, but
focus on like iPhones.
iPhones.
$1,000 cup holder.
As though it's either pears or iPhones that will be growing. Like what?
You grow iPhones on trees.
They may produce more pears, but they aren't as efficiently made or as higher quality as Argentinian pears, because Argentines spent all of their resources towards.
Otherwise, it would be more of our economy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're much larger.
That's the evidence that they're inferior.
Country, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Cultural economy. If you're a supermarket and you want to get the upper hand over competitors, are you going to order the okay quality, reasonably cheap American pears, or the high quality, very cheap to grow Argentine pears? Yeah, that's what I thought. And that's why it's better to ship fruit from across the ocean rather than growing them at home. But that doesn't explain why they have to go all the way to f***ing Thailand to be packaged. Part 2. Thailand in packaged they are why. Good question. At face value, it looks like you should really just pack these in Argentina and go straight to North America rather than all the way across the ocean to Thailand.
It's a minor point, but he keeps acting as though they're going around the bottom of Africa to get to Thailand, forgetting perhaps that the globe connects on each side there, and they could instead just go around the bottom.
Yeah, it crosses the Pacific twice. At least that's usually how the meme presents
exactly.
It. So he's just taking a different tack for the entertainment, I guess.
It's just
change it up.
One more thing that annoys me about this.
Thailand. Why the middleman? It's at this point that we should probably take a look at what this product in the picture.
Well, it's not going to be packed in Thailand because Thailand has not fully industrialized, it seems. And they're not allowed to based on the IMF loans or whatever. You can thank the IMF for that.
Yeah. They're gonna have cheap labor, and I would suppose access to these cheap petroleum products in the packaging.
But what you have a government that's ruled by these big landowners, and they want to. If there were more factories in Argentina, they would lose power.
Yeah.
But they would lose some of their They would lose some of their pull.
That is a definite possibility.
Is. From a different angle, we can see that they are pears, yes, but chopped pears in a lemon-flavoured syrup. Fruit in syrup products are popular in Southeast Asia because they don't require refrigeration and, more importantly, can be used to make rujak, a Southeast Asian fruit salad eaten mostly in Malaysia and Indonesia. Having easy access to preserved fruits that don't require refrigeration is crucial to developing countries like Indonesia. The packing facility in Thailand is close to people who want packed fruits, as well as other pear-producing countries like China and India. Again though, why not pack in Argentina and ship them directly to Indonesia? Because pears are picked roughly 1 or 2 weeks before they are ripe and then continue the ripening process off the branch in refrigeration. Coincidentally, about the time a container ship needs to get from South America to Southeast Asia.
He's got it ass backwards. It's not that they have to be picked a week or two before they're ripe. It's that because they know they're going on a long voyage, they pick them at that time so that they will be ripe once they reach their destination. There's nothing saying you can't wait until it's ripe to pick them and then can them right at the source. Utter nonsense.
It's definitely kid-brained, logic here. It's as if a kid is teaching a class.
Yeah.
But a well-spoken kid, obviously, a precocious kid who's read enough, but doesn't quite have the context or the logical underpinnings for real, better, honest argumentation.
I would agree.
Thus you get ass backwards conclusions.
If you packed in Argentina, you'd have to wait a week.
As he said, he did some reading, right? And the reading said about picking before it's ripe and the travel time. So
he must have to do it that way.
So he's reading half the story and he's making conclusions. So I suppose it's a part failure of media literacy, of not being able to read that and go, oh, yes, because they're planning around it being packaged in Thailand because it's servicing all these other markets, not just the North American one. So he's probably concluding about we'll finish. We'll see if he concludes about the value of centralization and that having all the fruit packaged or processed in one place in the globe that specializes in that, and that, in a global economy, each country specializes in one part of the process, of the industrial process, which is
ripe.
Just flows from the uneven development that comes from capitalism.
Absolutely.
Then make the 21-day trip to Indonesia. This would extend production time considerably, and that's just a waste of time.
Though I do want to say that any economics of efficiency will centralize in a way. Like socialist economies need to centralize certain a bit too. There will be uneven development. Although, it's been a puzzle with socialistic economics to try to have enough developments decent, spaced out so that every region has a certain economic base, so that no matter what, as long as there's these resource flows, people are not going to be laid off in mass, no mass layoffs. There's no moving of industries from place to place. It's like how I think about how in the Soviet Union, every town had a little amusement park with, a Ferris wheel, 3 rides and a mini kiddie roller coaster. It's like there were no big theme parks or whatever, no Disneyland, but there were a lot of smaller theme parks, and I kind of have to wonder about if we had that kind of planned economy, right? It would be different these days. Maybe each region gets a big ass amusement park, right? But which is how Six Flags kind of has worked. Or regions have, certain sized amusement parks. I just think about that stuff because amusement parks are cool, and whether we're in capitalism or not, we should have them. But
Absolutely, yeah.
I always
Entertainment's
kind of imagined
part of
in
being
Roller Coaster Tycoon that there would be a scenario where it's like you're working for a socialist government. It's like, look, you're going to have this much money to spend every year. You don't have to worry about ticket prices or selling the food. It's just like you're going to get this much budget, and the park will be you keep your job as long as you have this many people visiting. That's how you're judged, based on number of visitors, which many of the levels do that. Victory condition is not based on how much money you're generating, but how many visitors you have.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Well, let's try and finish this.
The inside of a dark metal shipping container is naturally cold. That's free ripening that can be done on the trip there, instead of paying millions for a high-tech, massive pear cooling facility in Buenos Aires.
Like, does he think that pears just don't naturally ripen? Is this like you have to force them to ripen or something like that? Like, I just don't get.
A lot of capitalist realists are kind of stuck in, this goes like techno enthusiasts.
Mhm.
They're kind of excited about all of the natural processes that suddenly don't exist anymore because there's a technical version of it.
Yeah, we've improved it.
The complexity
technology has
creates
taken over.
jobs.
Oh, well, that is true. That is true. All right.
So how did these pears end up in North America? The majority of Americans don't usually eat Ruyak and have refrigerators to store their fresh fruit. But there's still a demand, however small, for these packed pears. So to provide for this demographic, American supermarkets have two options. You could build a packing plant in the USA, take some American pears and pack them yourself. But because fewer people want the product, the production process would require fewer people to operate, which is not only less efficient and paradoxically increases the cost, but also produces more carbon dioxide per calorie processed. And believe me, big fruit companies aren't going to be paying people to sit around doing nothing. These are the people who overthrew Latin American governments for 2% higher profits. Or you could just buy from the factory in Thailand, which is better for your finances and overall efficiency. Seriously though, is it really that cheap to ship things?
Yes.
Pears are 178 grams, and each shipping container can hold...
Not
up to
really the
20
great clip there, though.
No.
Surely there's other examples of an animated character saying, yes!
Yeah.
There's tons of memes of people say, yes!
Well, I mean, he opened with a Seinfeld meme, so like.
Oh, yeah.
he's-
Because that's
He's not gonna
Skinner
be
saying
telling us.
yes to the question of the Aurora Borealis in your kitchen.
Which is a
It's like-
classic episode.
Maybe the guy doesn't know the context for the memes he's using.
Oh, probably.
Probably not. He doesn't know the context of the memes he's making fun of.
Yes.
1,000 kilograms. That's 135,000 pears. Shipping one container
Assuming that many can fit into a container. This
Did
is
he look up?
sloppy math. No, and I checked. He doesn't really have citations for anything. He has an appendix, which I could glance at, but I doubt it's going to be anything staggering.
from Asia to North America costs about $2,500, or 1.8 cents per pair. And that's how it costs mere pennies for companies to lug vast amounts of food across the world, and how exotic fruit ends up on your dining table at any time of the year. Maybe you don't have a problem with that. Unless you're under the age of 12, we all like fruit, and there's nothing wrong with getting things from abroad that you can't get in your own country. But maybe your contention is different. Perhaps you don't like this supply chain because it is bad for the environment.
2 minutes
Part
left.
3. Environment for the bad that shipping really is? Obviously, as massive coal and diesel burning machines, cargo ships produce a lot of greenhouse gases that are bad for the environment. The industry is trying to
But industrial
improve-
centralization is actually, energy efficient or something. because
Yeah.
you could either have one packaging facility in Thailand, or you could have 100 facilities scattered around the world, or in each country. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that would be more
Somewhat.
carbon emissions. That's my estimate.
By slowing down slightly so that they burn less fuel, and ideas have been floated, no pun intended, for nuclear or electric cargo ships.
Oh my god.
You haven't seen that?
I have, but like, why
Yeah.
is he using the tech bros that reinvented the sailboat as a
Yeah.
good thing? Wow.
No, I
Don't expect
I
those
don't know. No, he's throwing shade on it. He's saying don't
ideas to
expect
take
us
off.
to actually.
Oh.
I mean, come on. Surprisingly, though,
come on. I mean, come on, guys.
And then, well, I think that last one was like the automated self-piloting cargo ship.
Okay.
That would be great in the Suez.
despite shipping being nearly 80% of all international transport, it only makes up 37% of transport's carbon emissions. The king of pollution goes to road transport.
Oh, here's the old, hide the.
Wait. Good. Can you go back a second to the pie chart? So notice that red one there.
Uh-huh.
Rail.
Yeah.
Rail doesn't seem to have a lot of emissions.
No.
Maybe if all those road transport was put on rail,
another very efficient way to transport things.
It wouldn't be so bad.
In bulk, yeah. How about that? Yeah. Even have a convenient land bridge between North and South America. So, hey, maybe. But this is just obfuscates.
Well, no.
everything.
I mean, sea transport's fine. That's why it is cheap. You can do a lot. Those cargo ships are in fact massive beasts.
Right.
Again, that's not the issue. I mean, there's a certain. I don't know. I'm not going to let the vastness of the global economy stand in the way of trying to have some actual planning where we need to discuss these issues of centralization, where to industrialize, where does the economic investment really go, and how distributed industry could be to minimize the amount of energy needed. If it's just rail networks on a regional level, certain things do need to be brought in by ship. Obviously, shipping is essential. To trade, international trade.
Sure.
The Belt and Road Initiative is a mixture of port expansions and road and rail building, though, as well as canals too. But that's a different side of things.
Yeah. Indeed. I guess the one other thought I had about this is all this does is say, oh, roads are worse. So if you get your product by sea, well, I mean, also all that stuff that comes into the ports of
domestic pairs are brought to you by trucks.
Right.
Domestic pair production can only be brought to you by trucks.
But so are international ones too. Like most of them are not being set on the rails at the ports. They're being set on trucks and brought to distribution centers around the country. So part of that road is linked pretty directly with sea and air and rail and all of this stuff, because you always have to have that break of bulk.
It's sort of almost like mass transit, the last mile problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you don't have that problem if the distance that you need to cover is just that mile. So to speak.
But if you're taking it halfway across the country, so that
when it comes to local, the local apples at the co-op cost the same amount as any other apples.
Absolutely.
Because they're only traveling from a county away.
Right. And they tend to have more variety and tend to be fresher because they've ripened on the tree instead of in packing containers.
Sometimes they even have that farm manure smell.
Yeah.
Depending on the variety, but maybe I just keep picking the wrong type. Just gotta stick with the Golden Delicious.
Yeah. Golden Delicious, huh? I'm familiar with the Red Delicious, not the Golden Delicious.
Oh, it's the only apple I'll eat, really.
Golden Delicious.
Yeah. They're not Granny Smiths; those are sour.
Right.
But the Golden Delicious are sweet and
They're golden color. They're more of a yellow apple.
yeah, they're yellow.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems to be that the Honey Crisp is a big one that dominates out here because it was developed by the U of M, so people go crazy for it. That's pretty good.
I eat a lot of Honey Crisps, but like I kind of get tired of them fast because they're too sweet.
They're very sweet. Yeah.
I don't like how sweet they are sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's
Transports
finish
carbon
this up.
emissions. The king of pollution goes to road transport, which is crazily inefficient. Trucks and lorries are
Look at this. What's in there in the background? Why, it's a seaport. Unloading that stuff that came from overseas onto trucks. Imagine that.
It's talking like the sea transport's negating the road transport.
Yes. So.
Kind of
It's like,
forgetting that
sea
he's looking
transport.
at the whole thing, which is what we're like, can there not be a better way?
Right.
And he's saying capitalist realism says no, there is no better way. Which
Nope,
you
nope.
did
It's the best of all
introduce this
possible
video
worlds.
as this, yeah.
Yeah.
less than 10% of all international transport, and they make up over half of emissions? What the f***? If you're interested as to why this is the case, I've put a little supplementary video on my second channel where I explain the maths behind it. Go ahead and look at it if you want. Ferrying pairs halfway across the earth really is less carbon intensive than driving it in a truck to a packing plant in your own country.
And those are the only two options.
Keep in mind though, when it comes to any of these like discussions and looking at those pie charts, we need to reduce emissions by 80% to avoid Armageddon.
Uh-huh.
So even if we cut all the road emissions and it was all sea travel and everyone just lived on the coast,
Yeah.
that would still be too much,
Right.
right? We need
Yeah.
to think about how we cut that down to 0 or 20% of what it is now.
Yeah.
And with the economy continuing to grow.
Yeah, well,
Somehow.
that's
Even as populations decline, which is what all those videos that are, seeing it as a problem are really, because they actually do explain that it's like, well, the economy is going to slow down and it can't you can't have an economy grow if the population isn't growing. Like, what's wrong? And even now, Japan, even with its shrinkage, is still the world's third largest economy.
Yeah.
So, what? How has its economic power not decreased when it cuts a third of its population?
Uh-huh.
It's mad. Huh? In Adbusters, there was a fun article. It was from an economics minister in Japan. I don't know what her rank was, but it was an article called "What's Wrong with Being Number 2?" Just we're the third largest economy, or at the time second largest. And it's what is wrong with this?
Yeah.
We don't need to be number one. Why do we don't need to be number one? It doesn't matter if we're the 10th largest economy, as long as the economy is good, or we're Japan has not been growing its economy since the 80s. And what it's led to is just the intensification of the uneven development. That all development just happens in the Tokyo Metroplex and nowhere else. The rest of the country is decaying.
Yeah.
But so has the Rust Belt. It's called the Rust Belt because there's the entire section of America, Yankeedom, which has been decaying because the capital moved elsewhere. It moved to California, it moved to the Sun Belt, and it moved abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not coming back, though we have had some new capital come into our region because of a tech sector lots of government subsidy,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. But it's mostly the selling point. Like for these industries, it needs a highly educated population. Some regions have a lot of colleges, and that was the selling point.
Mhm. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue and finish it up.
All of international shipping, with over 5,000 container ships with a combined storage capacity of 714,000 cubic kilometers, is responsible for 2.5%.
Why is he showing the
global
Evergreen?
emission.
What was the Evergreen?
That's the ship that got stuck in the Suez.
Was it really? Oh, jeez.
And it got stuck because it was the biggest. So maybe, I guess, he just, what's the biggest cargo ship?
He probably just like a big cargo ship, and that's what came up. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the ship that got stuck
How ironic.
because it was too big. Fuck.
You know what? I don't think that's the biggest priority on the list of things that need decarbonising. I think we can leave that for a bit. So until we invent a TARDIS or a bridge across the Atlantic Ocean, shipping is the best option. Especially since only a tiny amount of a food's carbon footprint is in transportation to begin with. The rest comes from the farming process, and that's where we need to focus on cutting emissions. This is why large Argentinian farms are better than many smaller American farms. Larger farms can afford to invest in green technology and reduce their carbon footprint, and statistically, they do. So if you like buying things and you want to help out the economy of a developing nation while being the least environmentally damaging...
But I don't like buying things. I'm a communist. I don't want to spend money on things.
Mm-mm.
I just want them to go in my mouth. I'm a baby. He's pretty right, though. I mean, here's like so in all the capitalist realism, and of course it's sort of a fake concern. These shows don't really want to don't care about cutting emissions. They're just responding to the straw man environmentalist. Like, well, if you really care about this, you'll have your attention elsewhere. You know, it's just standard protocol, really, actually, to deflect. Well, you care about Palestinian lives, but what about the gang violence in your own neighborhood?
Exactly. Yeah. It's always if there's a worse problem than whatever thing you're concerned about just doesn't.
Or in their case, it's what about Hamas war crimes?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny how we're talking about war. Like these assholes talk about war crimes like in World War II terms. Like, well, we're just conducting war like the old times. What are you complaining about? Before the international order, which was supposed to tamp down on such things. We're just doing things like then.
What's the harm?
The thing that we really maybe regretted. So that's why we were really careful about using the atomic weapons again, or carpet bombing. But I mean, we did it in Nam, but that's what outraged it. Yeah, but that's what outraged the American public, that we were doing all that carpet bombing, and it didn't seem to matter.
Right.
It's a similar thing, though, right? Just in the same way that America couldn't legally or functionally invade North Vietnam, but could bomb it. I guess in the same way Israel can just keep bombing Palestinians and they never have to invade, which is why it's now some of the interpretations online have been that they're not going in with a ground invasion because they're not confident they would be able to do anything, that they are afraid they'll actually get their asses handed to them. They'll just get caught in one ambush after another, and it will be a quagmire, and they will not even be able to functionally punish Hamas, or it won't be like the Call of Duty level at the beginning of the second game.
I never played Call of Duty, so I don't get that reference. But
okay, well, let's see. The second game opens with you in Afghanistan, and you're crossing a river, and you're attacking the militia, which is a stand-in for the Taliban, and you're going through an urban neighborhood. No civilians have been evacuated, and you do a bombing run and you actually collapse this big office building because they're shooting rockets from the top of it.
Wow.
09.
Man. Yeah. that's little wonder that the U.S. government spends so much on these sorts of games.
Sure to buy foreign, this weird pack of pears may seem horribly inefficient, but it really is the best way to get the food you want into your mouth.
And again, as those
but he's saying that Americans don't buy enough of these pears to warrant making them in America.
Right.
So it seems that actually Americans and Anglophones do not actually want these pears.
Yeah. Like we could probably be fine with a few fruit trees in the neighborhood that we get once a year, and that will satisfy the cravings. And
but again, it's the processed pears. It's the like the canned version.
Yes, because we have to have the canned
in the syrup.
In that specific nasty ass syrup.
By the way, I've never eaten such fruit before because from a kid onward, it's just always looked nasty to me.
It is. The school that I just was working for, they would put these things in their breakfast and lunch all the time, and it was pretty hit or miss whether anyone would eat them because they're just gross.
Even the kids, yeah.
Yeah, even the kids.
As a kid, I wouldn't eat it. So I'd rather try to buy some bulk fruit.
Yeah, like
bananas.
I got to imagine it's like hospitals or someplace, like some big institution that's the big buyer of these sorts of products.
Yeah. Did you see the picture where, because of such lax regulations, I don't know the state or the school district, but you had a school district who was serving Lunchables for lunch.
You know what? That's not far off from the food that these kids would get. Like half the time, it was like literally gas station muffins or Danishes or bagels that they were giving them for breakfast.
Or the honey buns.
The honey buns,
the stuff out of vending machine food.
Yeah, gas station and vending machine food. Yeah, that's definitely a way to put it.
In middle school, to my shame, a majority of my lunches were out of a vending machine because I did not think it was worth paying my $1 for what the cafeteria was serving. At first, I was actually kind of impressed the first day I went, but that quickly went away as I just stopped caring what they were serving because it was mostly Domino's pizza, and I just was not going to eat pizza.
Oh, yeah, the Domino's pizza. You didn't even have like that awesome rectangular grade school pizza at all?
Well, in grade school, yeah, but this was middle school.
Oh, we had that all the way through like high school, I believe.
And because you only get one slice and super thin and whatever.
Yeah, but Domino's, like, ugh. Especially Domino's back then. Ugh.
But here's the worst of it. What I ate instead was there's an ice cream bar vending machine with drumsticks. And
of course.
At least twice a week, I think, I got that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't every day, of course. I would go insane if that was the case. But I don't even recall. I think I had my mom making my lunch again or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't or maybe by 8th grade, I started making my own lunch finally. I know in high school I certainly did. Because any sandwich I could make would be 3 times better than the sandwiches at school, whether I was paying for it or not. But I think since middle class, I would have to pay. And I'd not want to actually spend money every day for when my mom would just get cold cuts anyway.
Yeah, school lunch. Oh man, we could do episodes about that and all of its failures. It's just
it's well documented, and it's mostly because of the central distribution of school food, I guess, that you have school districts that are charged with operating as cheaply as possible.
Right.
So they're not going to make local deals with farmers or food companies because some areas don't have any food companies.
Yeah, true.
Or whatever, or I don't know, a local grocery chain or something.
Yeah.
At least you kind of get like the bulk stuff that a cook could make, big pans with. And but just the fact that like the whole image of mass media of the cafeteria where there's pans of food and they're doppling it out,
It's like slop.
that never existed. I don't even know where it exists
Really?
now. Maybe in high class, school districts or something, that where they actually do make pans of food and they scoop it out. Never existed. It's always been prepackaged,
Really?
pre-made shit.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like sometimes we would get like green beans and stuff, but you could tell it was
I like the
from a
green
can.
beans.
It
Obviously, I don't
originally
like
from
them
a can.
now, but like canned green beans, I actually liked a lot.
Yeah, I mean they're okay. They're pretty
High
flavorless
salt
compared to
content, I
regular.
guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's what mass.
Well, actually, to me, they actually tasted like something.
Yeah.
Versus the vegetables my mother would make.
Yeah.
Or I guess I had odd taste as a kid, as most did.
Yeah, well, I certainly did.
But I didn't really like a lot of the food served in elementary school. Except maybe like there was the Mexican pizzas. You ever had those?
Got some taco meat and cheese on a tortilla.
Yeah, they're the only round ones.
Yeah.
But they did remind me of like a Lunchable in its material. So it's like I stopped liking them after a while.
Right.
The older you get, the more you want real food, I guess.
Definitely. Well, unfortunately, that looks like it's taking up all of our time tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to get to anything else.
Well, hopefully by next time, maybe I'll have a more interesting background, though. It will be a bit of time before I know if I can get my other bookshelves in here. So the goal is to...
at least you got a few stickers up, and I see your American flags waving majestically in the corner.
These are all my dad's, actually.
Oh, okay.
Like the Mets and House of Blues.
Okay.
But Earth to Bush, no war, that was his. There's a lot more on this side, actually, but you don't see that. He didn't hang a lot of political stuff up in here, but I do have his. Oh yeah, he has old Gadsden flag.
Oh really?
Yeah. From the protest days, and I have all his buttons here and stuff. He has a Kucinich bumper sticker.
Really, Gadsden flag and Kucinich bumper sticker.
Well, look, you have to understand the Gadsden flag, when flown in '72, means something kind of different than post 2000. Okay. I mean, he's as a conservationist. Don't tread on the pine bush.
Oh, I was not even aware of that history of it.
He also has. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the Gadsden flag was kind of universal. Oh, sorry, that's a Howie bumper sticker. But I have found. Damn it, where'd they go? Anyway, old bumper sticker. Oh yeah, here's the Kucinich one. Strength through peace. Yes.
There you go.
But there's also old bumper stickers from the when opposing the construction of the mall.
Oh, nice.
Kind of ironic though that we would go there, but maybe just for movies. But we wouldn't go there every time. But
sure.
Why did my father ever allow us to go to Crossgates when he campaigned against its construction?
Good question.
When you become a family guy, you settle down. I guess you lose a lot of that bite.
You make some compromises.
He changed some of his interests from doing community work to. I mean, he kind of kept it up in some areas. He shifted it to being the treasurer for the PTA. After he was removed or kicked out of the neighborhood association, because at the time it was kind of old black ladies, and he didn't get along with them for maybe not obvious reasons, not racist reasons, but just, well, maybe they were racist against him, as far as just like, the white nerd guy who doesn't agree with them on everything. So why do we allow this guy to be around? That's the way he told it anyway. But I know what he's talking about because I interact with similar characters and they're not. How will I put it?
Not the friendliest.
No, not the friendliest. Okay then. As I struggle forward and try to form a local county Green Party chapter. But yeah, lots to do, and I'm starting to get tired. But here we are. All right, thanks for doing this once again.
Absolutely, thanks
and
for being on
we'll
again.
get back in our usual rhythm, and I'll see what I can find and what we want to discuss. If you have any ideas, just message me.
Definitely, will do. Be on the lookout. Seems,
All right.
I don't know about you, but it seems like my YouTube feed lately has not had a lot of variety to it. Like it seems like a lot of channels have gone dark for quite some time.
You're not alone. But I think it's also the algorithm that
I was thinking that might be
10 channels that I'm seeing in my feed, and it's basically the last 10 channels I clicked on.
Sure.
So there's obviously I have 100 subscriptions.
Oh yeah.
Channels, so if I can click on them, but I can also check which ones have stopped uploading or their upload schedule is very few, and there's that, or a lot of the things I do watch, they're an hour long. They're longer videos. They're not quick and easy or whatever. But that's where I think we could do architecture videos, just general stuff, fun stuff.
Some cool
Architectural Digest has some fun videos.
Oh, okay.
Nothing politically motivated. There's the radical planning videos. I think those could be good.
Yeah.
If we want to go through leftist strategy of some type, I can kind of keep trying to find something new there.
Sure.
But I don't know if we haven't hit the bottom of the well.
No, we covered a pretty wide swath of stuff, though.
I could go through, I could see if I can find videos on facilitation. I'm going to give a talk at work on running meetings. So I've been going through the materials I've gathered over the years, especially from Occupy, on running meetings. And putting that in a very quick, talk. So I could go through that.
Cool.
and kind of skill building.
Sure.
As well as that. But but obviously back to our roots of talking permaculture and what can how to do neighborhood economics, I guess. The thing is the videos or they're full conversations about planning economies and stuff. They're not making quick piffy videos, so there's that. Okay,
cool. All right,
brainstorming for another time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks as always. It's been a fun time, and I will see you next time. Have a good one, Dan.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Dan Platt of the Three Left Show. You can check out his stuff by going to 3lefts.news. I'll put that in the chat right there. And then we will go ahead. It doesn't look like we have enough people to raid. No raid, so we'll just shout out a channel instead. So if you're seeing this after the fact, which I know, quite a few of you do, as compared to watching it live, I would say check out the Political Deep Dive. It's a fun show. They tend to have a lot of panels on, and they have a fun time just talking politics and stuff. So go check that out, and I will see you all next time. I'm not sure when that's going to be. Probably not this week. Got training for my new job, so we will probably ride again on Sunday. Until then,